Welcome again to the webinar series in selected topics in system of national accounts. Yesterday, we made an introduction to the SNA framework. We talk about main concepts and definitions in system of national accounts 2008. Mainly, we talk about the institutional units, institutional sectors, flows, stocks, output. And then I also ask you some questions about your experience in your organizations. Yesterday, I received some questions from you. I would like to start from that one. You should have the link for the presentations, but for these presentations, you don't have it. So please, we will go through with these presentations, and then you will be provided the latest one later on. Yesterday, we said SNA measures what takes place in the economy, between which agents, and then for what purpose. Can we go to next slide? Can we move to next slide, please? Yes. And then, yes, we have two institutional units in SNA, one persons and households, the other one, the legal entities. And then we have 5 institutional sectors under these 2 institutional units. These are non-financial corporations, financial corporations, general governments, households, and non-profit institutions serving households. And this is the allocation of a unit to an institutional sector. We can move to the next slides. Yes. So what we see here, is it a household or institutional unit? If yes, it is a household. If no, this is the next question. Is it a market producer? If no, is it controlled by government? If yes, it's a general government. If no, it is a non-profit institution serving households. Is it a market producer? If yes, does it produce financial services? If the answer is yes, financial corporation, and if the answer is no, it is non-financial corporations. Yes, yesterday, yes, we can move to the next slide, Ratana. Yesterday, we said the term of corporation is used more broadly than just the legal sense. In general, all entities that are the corporations are capable of generating a profit or other financial gains for their owners, recognized at law as separate legal entities from their owners who enjoy limited liability, and set up for purposes of engaging in market production. Next slide, please. And quasi-corporation, yesterday I received a question on quasi-corporation. This is a definition from SNA and other sources. I try to use some simple words. A quasi-corporation is an unincorporated business that operates as if it were an entity separate from its owners. It is treated as if it were a corporation. So existence of a complete set of accounts, including balance sheets, for the enterprise is a necessary condition for it to be treated as a quasi-corporation. Quasi-corporations has no legal status. A municipal energy company or municipal transport company are the examples of quasi-corporations. Yes, next slide, please. Yes, production is an activity carried out by an institutional unit that uses inputs of labor, capital, and goods and services to produce outputs of goods and services. There must be an institutional unit that assumes responsibility for the process and owns any goods and produce as outputs, or is it entitled to be paid or otherwise compensated for the services provided. A purely natural process without any human involvement or direction is not production in an economic sense. This is our production boundary in system of national accounts. So before getting back to the question of remittance, I would like to explain again the residency concept. The concept of residence for households and individuals is based on their center of economic interest. If a resident household member leaves the economic territory where the household is based and returns to the household after a limited period of time of less than 1 year, the individual continues to be a resident, even if he or she makes frequent journeys outside the economic territory. Individuals live in their country with the intention of living in a new economy for a year or longer will be considered residents of the new economy, with a few exceptions like notable students, medical patients, diplomats, or military personnel. Yesterday, we talked about balance of payments manual. We said there is a separate chapter in balance of payments manual. The first one is the link for the balance of payments manual in English, Appendix 5. And the second one is the full version of the manual. And then you can check the Appendix 5 again for an expanded explanation. Next slide, please. Yes, economic concept of remittances and why they are important. Remittances represents household income from foreign economies arising mainly from the temporary or permanent movements of people to those economies. Remittances includes cash and non-cash items that flow through the formal channels, such as via electronic wire, or through informal channels, such as money or goods carried across borders. They largely consist of funds and non-cash items sent or given by individuals who have migrated to a new economy and become residents there, and the net compensation of border, seasonal, or other short-term workers who are employed in an economy in which they are not residents. The two items in the balance of payments framework that substantially relate to the remittance are compensation of employees and the personal transfers. Both of these standards components are recorded in the current account. Compensation of employees refer to the income of border, seasonal, and other short-term workers who are employed in an economy where they are not resident and of residents employed by non-resident entities. Compensation of employees represent remuneration in return for the labor input to the production process contributed by an individual in an employer-employee relation with the enterprise. Personal transfers consist of all current transfers in cash or in kind made or received by resident households to or from non-resident households. Personal transfers thus include all current transfers between resident and non-resident individuals. Therefore, personal transfers are a subset of current transfers. They cover all current transfers that are sent by individuals to individuals. Next slide, please. Yes, this is a table, shows the components required for compiling remittance items and their source. So it starts with the compensation of employees. Source of description is primary income account and standard components. Personal transfers, secondary income account, standard components. Travel and transport related to employment of border, seasonal, and other short-term workers recorded in goods and services account. Taxes and social contributions related to employment of border, seasonal, and other short-term workers, secondary income account. Compensation of employees less expenses related to border, seasonal, and other short-term workers. Primary income account for compensation of employees. Capital transfers between households. Social benefits, current transfers to non-profit institutions serving households, and capital transfers to non-profit institutes serving households. Yes, this is the sources. This is a source on international transaction and remittances guide for compilers and users. I again put here two links for you, one in English and the second one in Russian. You can check it to get more information on the remittances. Yes, thank you very much. We will come back to the SDGs and then main aggregates and SDGs if we have time today at the end of the webinar. So we can stop sharing this presentation, Roxana. Thank you very much. Do you have any question? Please raise your hands and turn on your camera and unmute yourself. I would like you to check the sources that has been provided in the presentation. Mansura, are you here? Mansura?
Да, я вас слушаю.
Mansura, hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon. Yes, I can hear you very well. Thank you.
Здравствуйте, Пинар Hanım. Yavaş.
Yes, good afternoon. I can hear you.
Yes. Yeah, could you please introduce yourself? Yesterday, thank you very much for your email. I think you had some problems with the microphone yesterday. May I ask what you are doing? And then what is your experience in national accounts? And any other views from your side? Yes.
Я Амира Асламова Мансура. Представляю статистический комитет.
Yes, I represent Azerbaijan Statistical Committee, work at the Department of National Accounts and Economic Indicators. I'm the chief economist, and I work with economic organizations.
How long have you been working in national accounts?
Я работаю 25 лет,
I've been working overall for 25 years, but for the last 4 years, I've been working with the economic units.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much.
Вам тоже большое спасибо.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, do you have any question on the presentation? Otherwise, we will continue with the sequence of accounts. Yes, Ratan, I appreciate if you can share the screen. Yes, great. Yes, sequence of accounts in system of national accounts. Sequence of accounts provides a record of economic activities based on a set of international agreed concepts, definitions, classifications, and accounting rules. Sequence of accounts are interconnected, and each is linked to a certain type of economic activity. The balancing items of each account, the difference between the resources and uses, are meaningful measures of economic performance in themselves. When calculated for the whole economy, they constitute significant aggregates. Accounts are compiled for the institutional sectors, are households, legal entities, and external sector. Transactions between the sectors are recorded in a quadruple entry system to ensure vertical and horizontal balancing of accounts. And these are integrated economic accounts. The main structure of the accounts, we have current accounts. In sequence of accounts, we have current accounts, accumulation accounts, and balance sheets. And also we have several sub-accounts, goods and services accounts, and rest of the world accounts. Current accounts record the production of goods and services, income generation and distribution, and income used for consumption and saving process. There are three main accounts under current accounts: the production accounts, and the distribution and use of income accounts. Accumulation accounts are flow accounts that record the acquisition and disposal of financial and non-financial assets and liabilities and changes in net worth. These are the accounts under accumulation accounts, capital account, financial account, and other changes in assets account. Balance sheets show the value of the stock of assets and liabilities at the beginning and end of the accounting period. Yes, this table shows the summary of main accounts, balancing items, and aggregates. We can see here the main accounts in sequence of accounts. So current accounts, accumulation accounts, and balance sheets. Under current accounts, we have production accounts and distribution and use of income accounts. And you can also see the sub accounts here. And under accumulation accounts, capital account, financial accounts, and other changes in asset accounts, and sub accounts under other changes in assets accounts. And balance sheets, we see the opening and closing balance sheets, as well as changes in assets and liabilities. We see the balancing item and the main aggregates. We will come back to this later in the following slides. Sub-accounts and special accounts under sequence of accounts. These are incoming kind account and use of incoming kind account, goods and services account, rest of the world account. Yesterday we said that all the macroeconomics, we said macroeconomic statistics are integrated. This is an overview of the SNA as a framework for macroeconomic statistics, including the international accounts. We see here the goods and services account, production account, generation of income account, distribution of income account, secondary distribution of income account, use of income accounts. We see the opening balance sheet, accumulation accounts, and closing balance sheet. So this table, in this table, shaded accounts do not appear in the international accounts. Previous slide, please. So we say here shaded accounts do not appear in the international accounts, such as the production account, generation account, generation of income account, and use of income account. So what would be the reason? What is the reason why shaded accounts do not appear in the international accounts? They are in the SNA, but they are not in the international accounts. What would be the reason? So I would like to hear from you. You can type in the chat or you can take the floor. Who would like to take the floor? Why shaded accounts do not appear in the international accounts? So any comment? Is any of you working on the balance of payment statistics? I would like to hear from you why the shaded account do not appear in the international accounts. Okay, I don't see any comment on the chat. Okay, shaded accounts, it's like production accounts and then use of income accounts do not appear in the international accounts because international accounts do not deal with the production and the generation and use of income. The main reason for international accounts to measure the transactions between residents and non-residents. Okay, we can move to the next slide. Goods and services account is the basic identity in SNA. It captures the idea that all outputs plus imports must be accounted for in one of the two basic activities of the SNA: consumption of goods and services or accumulation of goods and services. Please look at the formula here. So output plus imports plus taxes less subsidies on products equal to the intermediate consumption, final consumption, exports, and capital formation. So based on this equation, it reflects the fact that goods and services produced in the current period are used to generate more goods and services in the current period, which is called intermediate consumption, to generate more goods and services in future periods, capital formation, and to satisfy human needs immediately, final consumption. Rest of the world accounts. Transactions between residents and non-residents are grouped together in a single account called the rest of the world account. Why SNA is compiling rest of the world account? All transactions between residents and non-resident units have to be recorded in order to obtain a complete accounting for the economic behavior of resident units. This is the national and domestic concepts, the transaction with rest of the world, and adjusting the domestic measure for the flows of incomes from and to abroad gives the national measure. The macroeconomic aggregates are summary indicators of the result of the activity of the total economy and key magnitudes for the purposes of macroeconomic analysis and comparisons over time and space. There are directly obtained aggregates, total of particular transaction in the SNA, such as total production, final consumption, and gross fixed capital formation. And others result from the aggregating balancing items of institutional sector accounts, such as value added, balance of primary incomes, disposable income, and saving. So balancing item in production is value added. So balancing item of generation of income, operating surplus, and mixed income. Allocation of primary income. balancing items for the allocation of the primary income is balance of primary income. Balancing item for the secondary distribution of income account is disposal income. Balancing item for the redistribution of income in kind is adjusted disposable income. And balancing item for the use of income is saving. In accumulation accounts, we have these balancing items. For the capital account is net lending, net borrowing, and the financial accounts, net lending and net borrowing. The financial account is the final account in the full sequence of accounts that record transaction between institutional units. Gross domestic product. GDP is the aggregate measure in monetary terms for all commodities, goods and services produced in an economy during the given period of time. It's monetary terms. It covers all goods and services. It's an unduplicated output and marketed or bartered or self-consumed. Gross domestic products can be calculated with three approaches. First one, using the value of goods and services created in the economy. This is production approach. The total value of final uses. This is expenditure approach. And the total income generated by production, income approach. In the production approach, the value of goods and services created in the economy, output, GDP is calculated as output minus intermediate consumption plus taxes on products minus subsidies on products. With the expenditure approach, total final consumption plus gross fixed capital formation plus changes in inventories plus acquisition of valuables plus exports minus imports. And with the income approach, it is calculated as compensation of employees plus gross operating surplus, gross mixed income, plus other taxes on production and imports minus subsidies. The GDP by definition is the same whether measured at the point of production or at the point of income generation or at the point of final utilization. Yes, we can. I would like to hear from you here before continue with the national and domestic concepts. So I would like to hear from you with which approach you are calculating the gross domestic products. To take the floor, please turn on your camera and unmute yourself. Thank you very much, Ratana. Is there any participant from Mongolia?
Здравствуйте.
Good day.
Good day.
I would like to apologize for yesterday. We had technical issues. We represent Republic Tajikistan, who work in the system, national accounts, in the statistic agencies. Amishay Maksudan, our chief specialist. In our republic, we use the method of production method and method of final use, and also method of income. In the production method, we use the constant prices and current prices. We do a monthly estimation and quarterly and annual. And using the method of final use, we use quarterly and annual reports. And using the method of income, we compile only annual reports. Thank you.
Yes, you said you are compiling the data by using the tree approach. So income, production, income, and expenditure.
Yes, that is correct. We use both three methods.
Okay, and for tree approach, you disseminate the data on annual basis for the tree approach. Yes.
Квартальные, годовые.
Quarterly and annual. And monthly data only for production method, but we provide only to the government, not for general dissemination, these monthly reports.
Okay.
Because our monthly is just a short-term macroeconomic data along the production method.
Okay, I get it. How do you compile if I may ask, how do you compile the GDP using income approach? What are the problems you are facing?
We do it according to the standard. We use the remuneration, the tax, import duties. Yes, and we use the value added just according to the standard, which you have enumerated a while ago. We use all these methods to calculate.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Спасибо.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Я тоже кое-что добавлю. У нас
I would also like to add, in our republic, we also use all three methods to calculate the GDP: production, income, and final use. We also calculate quarterly on a quarterly basis, and I would like to add, on a quarterly basis, our data is calculated by a new methodologist. The new methodology is so I didn't get that. We, in the future, in the nearest future, maybe the beginning of next year, we will use a new system. This is an updated annual data which we have based on SNA 2008. So we are already using it. We use the research and development and expenses, military expenses, As we know, according to SNA, they are used as capital.
Mhm.
And so we are already using these methods to calculate the GDP. As for the sectors, all the sectors are employed, and we are working on the enumeration of capital, and so we can say that we have completely using the 2008 methodology. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Пожалуйста.
Thank you. There is, where is the chat? And then there's a, yes, from ROSSTAT also says ROSSTAT calculates GDP using all three methods on annual and quarterly basis at current and constant prices. The main one is the production method. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now we may go back to, we can go back to present. Yes, Seda, yes.
Я хочу сказать, что в
I would
Армении
like to say that in Armenia, we also use three methods to calculate the GDP. And the income method is used only for annual calculations.
Mhm.
All the others are used for quarterly and annual. And we also use the current and constant prices as well.
Okay. Thank you, Seda. Okay. Thank you for all the comments. We will continue with our presentation. Yes, gross national income. Gross national income is not a production concept, but an income concept, which is more significant if expressed in net terms after the deduction of the consumption of fixed capital. Gross national income is equal to GDP minus primary income payable by resident institutional units to non-resident institutional units plus primary income receivable by resident institutional units from the rest of the world. Gross national disposable income is equal to gross national income plus current transfers from the rest of the world minus current transfers to the rest of the world. So current transfers here, current taxes on income, wealth, social contributions, social benefits, and other current transfers. Capital formations are fixed assets, are physical productive assets, examples of which are buildings, civil works, and machinery, vehicles. And stock accumulation is in the form of changes in stock of raw materials, fuels, finished goods, and semi-finished goods awaiting completion. And saving measures the portion of national disposable income that is not used for the final consumption expenditure. Gross or national saving is the sum of the gross or net savings of the various institutional sectors. Net lending or borrowing of the total economy is the sum of the net lending or borrowing of the institutional sectors. It represents the net resources that the total economy makes available to the rest of the world or receives from the rest of the world. The net lending or borrowing of the total economy is equal, but the opposite side of the net borrowing or lending of the rest of the world. And the net worth, this is an important aggregate. The net worth of the total economy is the sum of the net worth of the institutional sectors. It represents the value of the non-financial assets of the total economy minus the balance of financial assets and liabilities of the rest of the world. What are the uses of key aggregates? GDP per capita, the level of economic development in comparisons to other countries. It is still one of the most common indicator for the comparison. GDP rate of growth, it shows the performance of the economy. Gross value added per worker, per work hour, can be used in the labor productivity. Compensation of employees per work hour, it's the labor cost. Compensation of employees, gross value added, shows the income share of the employees in GDP. And operating surplus, gross value added, can be interpreted as the income share of capital in GDP. Gross fixed capital formation, GDP rate is the share of investment in capital goods in GDP. Saving rate in GDP is the saving rate of the nation. Saving rate in the gross fixed capital formation is the domestic funding of investment. And these are the indicators, shows the performance of the government deficit, can be used for government deficit rate, share of investment and capital goods over total expenditure, indicator of pressure of debt payment on government expenditure, and government effort or tax burden. Okay, thank you very much. Now we will give a break for 10 minutes and then we will continue with some numerical examples on main aggregates. Thank you very much and see you after 10 minutes. Sequence of accounts. We will start with a summary of the sequence of accounts and we will continue with some numerical examples. The production account. So we see here, this is the basic presentation of the production account. On the left side, you see uses, and the right side, you see the resources. On the resources, we have output. On the uses part, we have intermediate consumption, and the output minus intermediate consumption is the value added. So balancing item in the production account is value added. The production account for the institutional units and sectors is illustrated in these tables. From the point of view of users, you see here the transaction and balancing items, output, the market output, output for own final use, non-market output, intermediate consumption, taxes on products, subsidies on products. So we see here all the institutional sectors, non-financial corporations, financial corporations, general government, households, non-profit institutions serving households, and the total economy, rest of the world, and then goods and services accounts and the total. And we see the balancing items here, value added, consumption of fixed capital, and the value added, the net value. And this is the resources, again, output, intermediate consumption, taxes on products and subsidies on products. We see all the institutional sectors, and then this is the summary of current accounts in sequence of accounts. This is the T account. Only one set of descriptive headings is shown in the middle of the table here, with the values representing resources in columns to the right, and the values representing users in the columns to the left. And this is generation of income account. And then we also see the balancing items here. Operating surplus, mixed income, consumption of fixed capital on the gross operating surplus, consumption of fixed capital on gross mixed income, so net operating surplus, and then next mixed income. This is allocation of primary income accounts. Again, we see in a T account, allocation of primary income account, operating surplus, mixed income, operating surplus net, mixed income net, compensation of employees, taxes on products and imports, subsidies, and property income. And the balancing items are balance of primary incomes, gross, and then balance of primary income net. Can we go back to previous slides? And then previous slide, please. Yes, previous slides, please. Okay. The production accounts is a balancing item. We get here the external balance of goods or services, value added consumption of fixed capital, value added gross. And then next slide, please. So generation income account starts with the value added gross and value added net. So the balancing item from the previous account starts with the generation of income account. And then as we see here, the balancing item is operating surplus, mixed income. And if we move to the next slide, we will see here the operating surplus, gross, and net values here. So each account starts with the balancing item from the previous account. So secondary distribution of income account starts with the balance of primary income, gross and net. And it has its own values on current transfers, current taxes on income, net social contributions, social benefits other than social transfer in kind, and other current transfers. And the balancing items here is disposable income, gross and net. Use of disposable income has final consumption expenditure, an adjustment for the change in pension entitlements, the balancing items here, saving, gross and net, and current external balance. Can we go back to previous slide, please? Yes, just a quick question here. Gross saving here is 427, and then net saving is 205. So how can I get the net saving here? How did I get the 205 here? Any response? How can I get the net values? How can I calculate the net values using the gross value? Yes, you can type here in chat how I calculate, how I get the net saving. I have 427 as gross saving, and how did I get the net saving? Yes, thank you very much for the response. Yes, gross indicators differ from net indicators by the amount of the consumption of fixed capital. Thank you very much. Yes. All the gross indicators here, all the net indicators here calculated as a gross value minus the consumption of fixed capital, which is 222. For the saving, net saving, then I'm typing in the chat here, net saving is gross saving minus consumption of fixed capital. $427 minus 222. $205. Okay. We can continue with the next slides. And then secondary distribution of income accounts. It starts with the balance of primary income, gross and net. It has the current transfer, current taxes on income, net social contributions, social benefits other than social transfer in kind, and other current transfers. And the balancing items here is disposable income and gross and net. Again, it is calculated as gross disposable, net disposable income has been calculated as gross value minus consumption of fixed capital. Use of disposable income. We have final consumption here, adjustment for the change in pension entitlements. We have saving, gross and net, and current external balance, so balancing items. Yes, this is the capital account. It starts with the saving, net saving, and it has the value for the current external balance, gross capital formation, net capital formation, consumption of fixed capital, change in inventories, acquisition less disposal of values, acquisition less disposal of non-produced assets, capital transfers, receivable and payables. And as we mentioned here, we have net lending and net borrowing. And this is financial accounts. We have the transaction here, net acquisition of liabilities, monetary gold and special drawing rights, currency and deposits, debt securities, loans, equity and investment fund shares, insurance, pension and standards guarantee schemes, financial derivatives and employee stock options, and other accounts receivable payable. And this is the summary of accumulation accounts and balance sheets, and then particularly on other changes in assets accounts. See here the other changes in the volume of assets accounts, revaluation accounts, neutral holding gains and losses, and real holding gains and losses. And the balance sheet here, we have T account again, columns on the right and the changes in liabilities and net worth, and the columns on the left, changes in assets. We have stocks and changes in assets, non-financial assets, financial assets and liabilities, total changes in assets and liabilities, and we have changes in net worth and all the other transactions, and we have closing balance sheets here. Can we go back to previous slide, please, Ratana? Total changes here. Changes in net worth total. Yes, okay. Okay, we can continue. all this sequence of accounts, Excel version, are given in this link. And it gives the users and resources separately. So it's not PDF, it is provided in Excel, and it gives all the formulas, calculations. I fully recommend you to check this Excel files later on. So if you have any question on how the value is calculated or how the balance and item is calculated, you can make sure by checking the formula given in the Excel file. Yes. Okay, any question here? We will continue with some numerical examples again. Yes. We can move to next slide. So we said that there are three approaches to calculate the GDP. GDP is using the production approach, is obtaining the framework of the production account. GDP at market prices is calculated as gross value added at basic prices plus taxes on products minus subsidies on products. Value added represent a measure of the additional value created in the process of the production, and it's equal to gross value added is equal to output minus intermediate consumption. So we are revisiting the production account T table, one part, left part showing the users and right part showing the resources. And we see in the middle the descriptive headings, accounts, and then descriptive headings for the economy. Yes, in the table here, we have output, we have intermediate consumption, taxes on products, and subsidies on products. So it is given already here as a balancing item, gross value added. So 3,000, the output is 3,064. And gross value added is equal to output plus taxes on products minus subsidies on products minus intermediate consumption. So 3,064 plus 141 minus 8 minus the intermediate consumption, which is 1,883, is equal to GDP, 1,854. GDP is using the expenditure approach, is estimated in the framework of the goods and services account. The extended compilation formula is GDP at market prices is equal to final consumption expenditure of households, non-profit institutions serving households, governments, plus gross capital formation, plus exports of goods and services, minus imports of goods and services. So this is the table for use of disposable income accounts. And we have final consumption expenditure here, 1,399. This is the total economy, and the next table, we will get the other values. Yes, gross capital formation here. And the next table, import of goods and services and export of goods and services. So final consumption plus capital formation plus exports minus imports equals to gross domestic product here. Again, the same value, we have the same value, 1,854. Yes, income approach. GDP estimated using the income approach is derived from the generation of income account for producer classified by industry or by institutional sector. This is the formula for calculation of GDP at market prices for the income approach. Compensation of employees plus gross operating surplus plus gross mixed income plus taxes less subsidies on production and imports. Yes, we are revisiting the generation of income accounts here. Compensation of employees, taxes on products and imports, subsidies, operating surplus and mixed income. We have all the values here. And GDP, what did we say? GDP equals to compensation of employees plus gross operating surplus plus gross mixed income plus taxes less subsidies on production and imports. Yes, again, we will get the same value for gross domestic products. So we have the same value for the GDP by the production approach, income approach, and expenditure approach. Yes, net domestic product is defined as the gross domestic product less the consumption of fixed capital. As you said, all the net values is calculated as the gross minus consumption of fixed capital. So net domestic product is equal to GDP minus consumption of fixed capitals, 1,632. Gross national income equals gross domestic product plus compensation of employees receivable from abroad plus property income receivable from abroad plus taxes less subsidies on production and imports receivable from abroad minus compensation of employees payable abroad minus property income payable abroad minus taxes less subsidies on production and imports payable abroad. I want you to check all the calculation later using all the tables provided at the beginning of the presentation. And then we will continue with the next aggregate. Yes, net national income. Income concept is better measured after deducting the consumption of fixed capital. So net national income is gross national income minus consumption of fixed capital. National disposable income is usually shown on a net basis. Net national disposable income is defined as net national income plus current transfers receivable from abroad less current transfers payable abroad. Yes. So we have GDP. Can we go back to previous slides, please? Net national income, national disposable income. Previous slide, please. Gross national income, net domestic product, and gross domestic product, calculating 3 approaches. So I would like to hear from you. Can you stop sharing the presentation, Roxana, please? Thank you. Thank you. I would like to ask you if you are calculating these aggregates. So we talk about the gross domestic product, net domestic product, gross national income, net national income, and then national disposable income. Are you calculating and disseminating these aggregates? I would like to hear from you. Who would like to take the floor first? There are some participants who didn't take the floor yet. Gülsüm, are you able to turn on your camera and unmute yourself? Gülsüm? Could you please turn on your camera and unmute yourself? Kazmakpal. Yes, Susanna, would you like to take the floor? And then I will go back to Mansoura if she wants to talk. Susanna, good day. Could you please turn on, unmute yourself? We cannot hear you.
Așa слышно?
Do you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you?
Здравствуйте. Нормально, спасибо. У вас?
Thank you, I'm fine. And what about you?
Thank you very much. Thank you. You are from Armenia.
Да, из Армении.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, one of your coworker already shared her experience with us. What about you? What are you doing in statistics
Да.
office in
Мы
Armenia?
тоже рассчитываем все
Being
эти
in the yeah, we're also calculating with the national national income and other figures. We calculate them by this usage of fixed capital.
Yeah, consumption of fixed capital. Yes.
Yes, consumption of
So,
fixed capital.
So, thank you for the interpreter. Are you disseminating all the aggregates that I mentioned in the presentation? So, gross domestic product, yes, you do. So, net domestic product, gross national income, net national income, national disposable income.
У нас, да, у нас все это опубликовано, и все эти данные есть у нас.
Yes, we have all those data
В электронном сайте.
in electronic form.
Mhm.
We have consolidated sheets. Yeah, we have all these data in a net form. So
you
net national income and also our accumulation and disposable income.
So you said you're disseminating the results on your web page.
Да, да, да. Я только что сказала, что у нас там есть консолидированные.
What
Yes,
about
we have the consolidated data there.
What about the newspapers?
What?
Do you have a press release for the newspapers?
Именно эти показатели или вообще?
Sorry, he showed us.
Yes, I'm asking if they have a press release for the newspapers.
Да, да,
Yes, yes, we publish this data in newspapers. We the national accounts.
So
We
may
have
I
already
ask,
published it.
thank you. May I ask how is the statistical literacy in your country? So is the public are familiar with these definitions when you say it's the gross national income, when you say national disposable income, are they familiar with these concepts? And then what are the activities to make them familiar?
Ну, бывают такие встречи с комитетом и с прессой, и использовать.
Yes, we have some meetings between our representatives with the press.
Ну, да, до пандемии.
Before the pandemic. But now we do everything online.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much, Sanna.
До свидания.
Yes, goodbye.
Pınar
So-
Hanım, мы можем
Yes, I'm
подключиться?
listening.
Окей. Я бы хотела сказать, значит, Республика Азербайджан.
First of all, I would like to say that in
на данный момент,
Azerbaijan today,
как я уже отметила,
as I've already noted,
Азербайджан перешел на СНС 2008.
we have already using the methodology of 2008, SNA 2008. all the aggregates of SNA, they are calculated and they're published on the website of our republic. You can see it both on an annual and quarterly basis. On a quarterly basis, as I mentioned, we have a new methodology, chaining key is called. I think all the developed countries are using this technology, use methodology. And we have also quarterly and monthly and annual data. Monthly data is primary data. According to the legislation, they're published on the 5th working day of the previous month.
Mhm.
This data regarding the GDP, and then they are published as quarterly and as annual data. You can also see press releases on our website, not only on SNA, but all the other economic activity data is being published. Also, we have meetings once a year with the users and all the issues, the questions that interest them, and we give them replies, and we develop special tools for them so that they would be more familiar with this or that issue in the macroeconomic indicators and SNA. Also, every year we have new regulations, and we do the econometric analysis.
Mhm.
Use our statistics data to make different reviews and projections. We have this package for economic analysis, econometric reviews. Also, we work on we're using STATA packages to calculate of our macroeconomic indicators. So we most of all we use a quarterly analysis, and we provide our Ministry of Economy with these analysis because it's obligatory for the development of the economy.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. We also do the censuses. We analyze the accuracy of our censuses every 10 years, censuses of population. And as far as SNA is concerned, we organize, last year we have organized a lot of seminars, especially for annual accumulation. As we know that according to SNA 2008, there is a subject about, there's one a problem regarding the R&D. We are already using this, and we know that which part should be put into intermediate consumption and which part to capital, fixed capital. What else one can say?
Mhm.
In the PSIM area, the calculation of the aggregate on a constant basis, on the quarterly basis, sorry. And as far as taxes are concerned, this should be the way. And we have introduced this for about a year, this innovation. What else I can say? or what you're interested in, we can answer your questions.
Do you disseminate the results in PDF format, or do you also provide Excel, or you said you are compiling the data using Stata? Are they able to get the data in Stata data format, data files?
Так, я отвечаю на ваш вопрос. Значит, мы публикуем...
We publish in Excel format. We don't publish in PDF. We only have like a summary of the SNA in PDF, but all the data is in Excel.
Okay.
We don't publish in Stata, only except for only for the Ministry of Economy. So this is a new thing for Azerbaijan. Yeah, it's not the prognosis and assessment. It's not really the job for statistics, but we do this as a favor for the economic ministry because it's quite important. In our quarterly reports, we have to make some projections. Yeah. We correlate the data between macroeconomic indicators and the relation analysis between macroeconomic indicators.
Because for getting the results, for example, we have the results on quarterly basis or annual basis. We have to compare, we have to analyze, and we have to understand our outliers, in which economic sectors we have some outliers, and we have to eliminate these outliers. But how to do it? We have to know the reason of these outliers. That's why we decided to use such kind of programs like EViews, like Stata or SAS. Yes, it's really nice and it's very interesting, and especially when we compile quarterly on a quarterly data GDP, and when we compare our two methods, for example, the compilation of GDP by expenditure and the compilation of GDP by production method, because as you know, between them we have statistical discrepancies, but we have to minimize this statistical discrepancy. How to do it? We have to focus on our resources, and to understand what the large share between which indicators we have this share of outliers or of discrepancies. That's why we use such kind of data, but we do not publish, because as I told you, it's only for our understanding. But I don't know, maybe in future we will publish in this format. But if you want to receive, we can compile for you, and we can do it if you want, especially, and we can send you. Yes.
Yes, thank you very much, Mansura.
Thank you.
It will be enough if you can just share the link on the chat to your press release. I would like to have a look at your press release. And if you are also the other participants, if you are using some infographics for your economic indicators or macro or the main aggregates for the GDP, I would love to see your press releases. Other than that, I don't need to see the data. Yes. Okay. We will close our presentation, but I have one more question. So any of you what about the SDG indicators? So any of you are calculating SDG indicators, particularly for GDP, gross value added, SDG indicators? Or are you in collaboration with an organization or with the unit in your organization to come up with such indicators?
Ms. Pinar, if you let me, I can add something about that.
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay. We have in the statistical of the Republic of Azerbaijan, we have the special department about SDG, and this department yes, interested in the compilation of these indicators SDG. We have also the portal about SDG, and we share our data, and you can see on our site and our website. And we also have the special, how to say, structure of the compilation of that indicators. And of course, we have also a special survey for getting the results from the SDG and to how to add this to GDP. Yes, and we started the compilation of that indicators from 2015. Okay. It's like it's closely 6 years.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Mansura. Thank you. So, is there anybody else to talk about this GDP related SDG indicators? I would like to hear from your experience from your country. And in chat, I just shared the SDG indicators in Russian. Yeah, who would like to take the floor? I would like to hear from you. GDP related SDG indicators. How do you produce? How do you collaborate with the units responsible for producing SDG indicators? For example, SDG 9 on infrastructure, innovation, and what's the other one? I don't remember the other one. Yes, infrastructure, innovation, and then investments. Okay. Thank you, Mansura, for sharing the link. There are some indicators in SDG 9 related to manufacturing. Yeah, would you like to take the floor, Susanna? I like your library. You have lots of books.
Да, мы такие начитанные.
We are well read, yes. We calculate 5 SDG indicators, real GDP per capita. This is 8.1.1, then 8.2.1. Annual GDP growth per one employee. And also 8.4.2, 10.4.1, and 12.2.2. 5 indicators we calculate the data. And we have all the indicators on our website. in different languages, and all the indicators are there. But of course, every department is calculating those indicators that they're involved in. We are only involved in GDP indicators, GDP-related indicators.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you very much. Yes, we have still few minutes. If you would like to talk, I can give you the floor. We had some participants yesterday. Yunusova, are you still here? There were two ladies. Are you with us? Yunusova and Seda, are you still here? Are you here? Okay, I see a question here on chat. I'm going to respond that tomorrow. It is related to value of acquisition using the GDP expenditure. Thank you for the question. Okay, Dan, I will wrap up the meeting. Thank you very much for your participation. Tomorrow, we will have our third webinar on the update on 2008 SNA. The target date for the upcoming SNA manual is 2025. We will talk about the discussion points on the updates and what is the reason behind this change. And Alik Niyasoda from ESCAP will be with us. I will make an introduction and then we will continue. We will get into the details. And then if you have any question, I will ask you to type in the chat or I will ask you to take the floor as we did on day 1 and then day 2. Thank you very much for your interactive participation. Thank you very much for sharing your experience. And then see you tomorrow. Thank you.